going. And again, if you could add your school to the in the participant section, if you could add that, you just click on participant and then hover over your name, click more, and you can add your school to your name. So we are talking today about supporting student success, and Mr. Davis Baker is our guest speaker. He is currently the principal at Hillsdale High School. So here's a picture of him, and you can see he's live in person with us today. So Mr. Baker, I'm going to actually just stop sharing the screen and let you have the floor.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Well, my name is Dave Baker. I am at Hillsdale High School. This is my 45th year as a professional educator. I spent 10 years in the classroom, and I spent the last 35 years as a administrator, or 2 years at working at the Butler County Educational Service Center just north of Cincinnati. I've done a lot with helping students reach a level of success. My goal is that as we work through No Child Left Behind and Every Child Succeeds Act, oftentimes I ask the question, what changes did you make when those two movements or those two opportunities came along? And if we're still doing the same thing, we're probably getting the same results. But if we've made some changes, and I'm going to share some of those changes that being in districts where we were very, very conscientious of what we could do to help students be successful. These are some of the things that we have in place. Some of you have heard me speak maybe in the past of school without failures, where our goal is that we're doing everything we can to make sure that students don't fall behind and don't fail classes. I'll just spend about a minute or two explaining a little bit about School Without Failure. Every Friday afternoon, all of our teachers submit a list of students that have either failed a test, have fallen behind more than one homework assignment, or have a major assignment due. They give me that information. I put together a list, and then I have a form that I give to every student whose name appears on that list, telling them on Monday morning they've fallen behind in one or more classes. I list the class and then tell them that they have Tuesday school after school, unless they get it done by Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. The vast majority of our kids do get their work done. We also have built in for them an opportunity to take advantage of assistance from teachers during an intervention, 20-minute intervention period that's built into our lunch day or lunch period. And the idea is the parents will also receive a automated phone call saying that their son or daughter has been scheduled for Tuesday school. And we do that because we know if they fall more than 2 or 3 days behind, either they won't do it or it becomes irrelevant to what they're trying to do in the classroom. So it serves as the old weekly reminder that you got to get everything done. And we tell students you can do it in class, you can do it over the weekend, you can do it between Monday morning and Tuesday at 3 o'clock. But if you don't get done, then we have an after school session for you from 3 to 5. When you get your work done, you're free to leave. But the idea is we don't want anybody to fall behind. We want them to be successful. And the results have been very, very good. If you can't fail, it makes it difficult. At any rate, I've gone even a little bit further. I've also done something called success conferences. And this year is a year that, because of the COVID situation, we're taking no field trips. So we're not doing those success conferences. But if I have students, and I'll do a couple of success conferences a year, or I have done success conferences in the past a couple of times, but I start with my juniors at the end of the first quarter. Any junior that failed more than one class, we send them a very nice letter saying, congratulations, you've been selected. We do a lot of nice things for our student leaders. We do a lot of nice things for our students that make great grades, but we also need to not overlook the fact that we have students that aren't doing as well as we'd like to see them do in the classroom. And so we put together a trip. That trip is off campus. We involve our superintendent. In the information that I put together and shared with Lisa, there is a success conference program where we kind of spell out what we want to do, how we're going to use that day. We put together a notebook for our students. We give them a calculator, which we purchase. At the end of the day, we give them a shirt because they're probably the only shirt they have that will have our school name on it is the one that we give them. But the idea is that our superintendent will welcome them. We'll review what things we're going to do for the day. We do some hands-on activities, some team building, some problem solving initiatives. I also do a lot of leadership retreats, so I've taken some of those ideas and plugged them in there. We have the students do a personal asset inventory where we talk about where they can draw their strengths and where their opportunities are. We also have them do a program with how are you smart? In other words, we tell everybody that they're smart. It's just some are smart in other areas and so forth. So we have a couple of surveys and assessments, and if you're interested in having those, we're happy to share them with you. We are in a path, I have always made sure that I've included somebody from the Career Center to share the opportunities, because our goal is on graduation day, and we tell our students from the time they're freshmen on, that on the day that you graduate, the next day, we hope that you have a skill that you picked up at the Career Center. We hope that you've either enlisted into one of the branches of the military or you've been accepted at the college level. But our hope is that you're ready to join the workforce the day after you complete high school. In other words, for every month that you go without collecting a check, you've missed an opportunity. And so don't miss those opportunities. Make sure that you are ready to hit the ground running when we get to commencement day. We'll bring in a guest speaker from the military, and some years we've had as many as 3 or 4 military people come in and speak and talk about what the careers are. It was actually through this program that we had somebody speak from the Ohio Army National Guard. What I didn't realize, and I learned on one of our success conferences, is that at that time, if you enlisted into the Ohio Army National Guard and took advantage of in between your junior and senior year, went to your 12-week basic training, you could come back. We could use that time as the replacement for your phys ed requirement, and then you would finish your senior year. You would have an opportunity to start doing your 6 years of weekend service and a few things beyond. But at the end of the 6-year stretch, your college education was paid for. And so we've had a number of students that have taken advantage of that opportunity, and coming from homes where they never thought they could go to college. In fact, they can, and it can be at almost no cost. And so we encourage them to take advantage of that. We also work with the idea behind success conferences that we want to make sure that we pair them up with a mentor. And the mentors over the years, I started with bus drivers because they had already gone through the criminal background check. And so they could come in, meet with our students on Friday afternoon. We had a checklist form or a couple questions that those mentors would ask those students while they sat down and had lunch. Those students will get their lunch, go to a separate room where the mentors are waiting. I've worked with youth pastors. I've worked with business executives from Georgia Pacific when I was in Georgia. But the idea is those people will come in and meet with our students once a week, and we try to incorporate them when we do our success conference. In other words, we'll even give them some questions so they can do a mock interview with our students at the end of the day. And so there are a lot of different pieces that you can plug into a one-day success conference. We also do some things such as we give them their transcript. We talk to them about how to determine what their grade point average is, and that's why we give them the calculator so they can keep that. So we talk about a lot of different things during the course of the day, but I'm real big on the idea that relationships always come before task. I've encouraged our teachers to do all that they can to create those relationships with students, because I think their level of success is going to be certainly improved significantly. As a former coach, I felt like the relationship that I created with my athletes, oftentimes they may have some skills, but their willingness to work really hard for a coach or for a teacher, which is exactly what I want to see, was really pretty important to be able to do that. And so the Success Conference program, I set it up so that the seniors I'm working with pretty closely. The juniors will meet with them at the end of the first quarter, the sophomores at the end of the second quarter, the freshmen at the end of the third quarter. I've had students that have gone to success conferences 3 years in a row. We involve the parents. I actually have a survey that we ask the parents to fill out, And then we share that with the mentors in advance. And so it takes a little bit of time to put everything together to make this work. I've included letters or things that we've shared at a couple of different districts, a couple of different schools, just to give you more ideas. And again, you're welcome to use, change, rearrange, and make it better. And I'm sure all of you, when you take on something, you find ways to make it better. Uh, each of those ideas are things that you can work with. And so I put together just a couple documents that you would have. The first one is what a success conference looks like, some of the people that we have invited, the letters that we send to the students, um, letters that we send to the parents, share with them, an agenda so that you can kind of see what an agenda might look like for the day. We provide a meal for them. I've been very fortunate in the past where a convention center agreed to be our partner and provide the meals for 3 times a year that we would meet with them. Um, I've had local businesses that have covered the cost of a shirt, the calculators, the notebooks, and everything that we give to the students when they meet. Um, we've even put together something called Friday reports, and so I shared that Friday report with you. But in some of our IEP meetings and some of our meetings with parents, we have been able to give the Friday report to the parent and say, part of your job is, as a parent, that you'll agree that you'll make sure your son or daughter has a Friday report that they work with every week. That Friday report requires the parent and the student to work together. The student is responsible for writing down each of their assignments, and then the teacher has to look at it and initial it. Then at home that night, the parent will make sure that the son or daughter shares that report. And then as the student does the work, the parent just initials how much time they're spending. And the emphasis on that is we tell parents, if they're spending an hour on an assignment that takes 15 or 20 minutes, that helps us a little bit as educators. And so we want the parents to work with us on that. Excuse me. Want our parents to be a part of that. And at the end of the week on Fridays, then we collect these Friday reports, we save them in a notebook, and then that way we can kind of monitor the progress that they're making during the course of the year. And so again, Friday reports gives us an opportunity to work with our students to make sure that they are keeping track of the work that they need to do. And we tell them that gets measured, gets done. And so that is a little more information that if it's helpful, certainly the idea is to share as many good ideas as we can. Another piece that we have put in place here is the internship work study program. And we have a number of students, and I've done this for a lot of years, that working with that student will take advantage of the work study. In particular, I found that it's been very, very helpful to some of our students on IEP because we have local businesses in our area that will allow our students to work. We will work with our transportation for kindergarten or at the middle of the day to take some of our juniors and seniors that might be on an IEP. We'll make sure that they have a chance to go to a location where a business is participating with us. For the first 2 quarters of their junior year, they might be just doing internship. In other words, there's no pay involved. They have a chance to learn a skill. They're spending 1.5 hours to 2 hours a day at a local business. They might be stocking shelves. They might be cleaning, but they are gaining an opportunity. We keep track of those hours, and then perhaps the second semester, the business might start paying them an hour or more a day. And so we can be very flexible with that, especially if you have special education students at the end of their junior or senior year that would benefit from a learning or an employment type opportunity or internship. And so again, we make that available. At the end of the day, a bus or a van will pick them up, bring them back to school, they ride home. And so by just using existing transportation and the good kindness of the people that live in our community, it really gives us a chance to create a work study program that will benefit them as well. So there are a number of different pieces that we do have in place when it comes to helping our students be successful. One of them is the Success Conference. One of them is the work study program. The School Without Failures is our commitment that we tell students you're not allowed to fail. that we won't let you fail, and yet we still have some that will not do the work. It's challenging. Matter of fact, we had 12 students here in my building that failed 2 or more classes at the end of the first semester. At the end of that time, we sent them an email, we sent them US mail, and I made a phone call to each of those parents saying, we have parent-teacher conferences coming up in February 16th through the end 18th. We'd love to meet with you for 20 minutes. And with that group of 12 parents, only 4 would respond to participate in the program that we had in place. 2 of them we were able to do with Zoom meetings, 2 of them actually came in. But oftentimes those are families that have experienced limited success in school, whether it's with their own children, whether it's their own experience, or it could be 2 and 3 generations deep. But the idea is
Oh
we'll
my God.
continue to reach and do the best that we can to provide opportunities for students and parents to work with us to be successful, mentors from the community when possible, arranging a lot of different things in place to try to set up our students to be as successful as they possibly can be. I know I've talked about 20 minutes here. I wanted to leave a few minutes here to answer questions that you might have. And again, if there are some of the things here that I've not provided, I think there was a couple documents that I made available, and I'm happy to share anything that I have. And again, we're not looking for any credit. We're just looking to help others be successful with their students as well. What questions can I answer for you? What thoughts do you have?
Davis, did you mention how many years you've been doing this program?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. Slowly but surely over the past probably, well, it's my 35th year as a school administrator. So it's been quite a while. I think it's evolved over the years. I think I probably have done more things wrong than I have right to get to this point. So I would say if I talk about success conferences, I would say I've been doing success conferences for probably about 15 years or longer. The Friday reports I've been doing before that. The School Without Failures actually started, I had 31 years in Ohio. I like the warmer climate. And so my wife and I made a decision that we wanted to go to a warmer location. We went to Georgia. I interviewed and accepted a position just north of the Georgia-Florida border. On day 2 of the job, a lady from the Georgia Department of Education walked in and said, "My name is Dr. Sheila so-and-so. I've been assigned to your building. You are a building that is classified as NI4, which means needs improvement 4. Also was classified by the United States Department of Education as a dropout factory. We had a 39% graduation rate. And I like challenges, and it looked like a challenge, and it was. What she said next was, I need to meet with you and the rest of your administrative team. If you don't meet the AYP numbers this year, you'll all be terminated from the state of Georgia for the next 5 years. That was a real shocker. But that's when I started the really putting in place School Without Failures. And of course, the teachers met with Dr. Sheila, and she also explained that if we were unsuccessful and lost our administrative team the first year, the second year, if we were unsuccessful, that every teacher would be terminated. So that gives you kind of an idea of the challenges that we were facing. And so under circumstances like that, you can become very creative and very aggressive and invest a lot of time in doing what you can to help make sure that your students are successful. Within 4 years, our success rate went from 39% to 69%. And at that time in Georgia, even though 90% was the expectation in Ohio, Georgia's expectation was 60%. And so we made the numbers, nobody lost their job, and we did a lot of creative things. And so that's where I really had a chance to focus hard on success conferences, School Without Failure, Friday reports, programs that we put together on Saturdays and into the summers. And a lot of pieces really kind of fell together with a lot of intense effort on the part of good teachers, good guidance counselors, and good administrators. Other thoughts or questions? I can share that when we bring in a guest speaker, it's really important to have somebody from the Career Center come in. They share the number of opportunities that are available. They talk about the importance of, for many students, they're not comfortable sitting at a desk for 5.5 or 6 hours a day behind a computer or reading. But if you can get them on their feet using their hand, their chance for success will increase or improve. And so for a lot of our students that are struggling with school, their junior and senior year at a career center is a great opportunity for them. We also stress to them that the United States Department of Labor Statistics has shared that a student graduating from a career center with the skill typically makes more than a person with 2 years of college education or with an associate's degree. And those people are needed in society. And so we encourage them to consider that. Same way with the military. They talk about what they call the MOS, the Military Occupational Specialist area. And they talk about the number of opportunities that are available for young people. But then we also talk about their grade point average. We also have business people talk. I can share that I've had situations where the business people that meet with some of our students develop close relationships. When the business people meet on Fridays, they have a survey that they complete, and then they leave that with us so that we can kind of follow along. That's the weekly mentor progress report, or success conference weekly mentor progress report. And that some of those mentors have stayed in close touch with some of our students, have taken them to minor league baseball games, have met their family. And at the end, there's a parent contact number so that that person that is working as a mentor also will contact the parent or caregiver and say, had a nice meeting today with your son or daughter. They indicated they'd been in school every day this week, that they got their homework done, that there were no discipline issues. There were no issues at home. Those are the type of things that our mentors are able to share with a family member. And again, we're trying to create a relationship. We're trying to bridge the gap between school and family. And so those were some of the neat pieces and some of the fun stories that over the course of the year that I can share with people that try to do the exact same thing that we're trying to do here. And so the Success Conference, and again, I'm sorry that we're not able to do those. We were really determined to put a couple of them in place. We have a liaison here that has just been terrific working with some of our students. She was ready to pull things together, and I think she wanted to do a lot of the work herself to put everything in place. And so our hope is that as things change, we're hoping to return all of our students at our high school on March the 8th. That is the plan as of right now. And so there may be the possibility that we may be able to do one Success Conference this spring yet. We're still holding out for hope on that one to see if we can make that happen. So,
Davis, I've got a couple of questions in the chat for you.
great.
So you mentioned an asset assessment or inventory. Is
Yes.
that included in the resources that you shared with us?
I did not. I can share those two. The asset assessment. I can also share the parent survey. So I will, after we get done today, I'll make a note of that. So please send both those two things.
Yeah, if you get those to me, I will make sure I get it out to this group.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that.
And then the other question is, you said we. So who's on your team for this? Is it just the administration and counselors? How do you structure and organize the work?
No, every building's a little bit different. In my building here, I have a media specialist or a librarian who I call a gold heart. I have a number of people over the years that I classify as gold heart because they are people that will do anything to help a kid. So I have a gold heart in my library. That is a person that would be involved. Our liaison is very much involved. Guidance always has been involved. The administrative team has always been involved. And typically I'll have one or two teachers that'll say, I really want to be a part of this. And so we'll free them up for the day so that they can join us for the conference. And they are the ones that typically might be in the classroom or welcoming the mentors. We'll try to build around their schedule after we've had a chance to get it off the ground so that they are free. Their free bell would be a fifth period or a lunch period time so they can work with us. I've also had situations where when I was in Georgia, there was an organization called Communities in School. And so we took advantage of some of our community people to become involved with that. I mentioned before that Georgia Pacific was a big player for us when I was in Georgia, and they freed up a lot of their executive people at lunch. Every Friday, they brought their lunch in, met with our students, and shared some things right up until the bell would ring and students would have to go to class. And they wanted to be a part of what we were doing in our schools. And so it varies. Some years, again, I started with bus drivers and custodians because they were free. I meet once a month, or had met once a month until this year, with our local ministers and youth ministers so that we could share some of our programs and our ideas, and they have been big supporters of some of the programs we have in place too. So that kind of gives you a wide gamut of the various different groups that have been involved with success conferences in my years of doing it.
So I'm curious about the mentors. Do you like send out letters? Do you make phone calls? How do you gather those mentors?
With the youth ministers and pastors, I've always liked to get together with them once a month. Matter of fact, I was in a district many, many years ago where the superintendent said, you give a free pass to all of our youth pastors and ministers for they and a guest to attend any of our sporting events, musicals, plays, and so forth. Anything that's not tournaments that they can get in free, we want them to. Those are great people to have on your campus. And so that's kind of where I started. With local businesses, I've contacted business leaders and shared, here's what the program is. Sometimes I've made appointments, have gone off campus and talked with leaders at a local business and shared where we want to go, what we want to do. Hasn't always gotten the result that I'd hoped for, but it certainly is a reach from my perspective into the community to try to get people involved with the things that we want to accomplish with our students. And our goal is, again, to see every student be successful and make sure that we're providing a solid workforce for everybody for the future.
So I just have one more question, but this one kind of changes gears. Your School Without Failures.
Yes.
I know you've done a lot of work to increase success of your students
Yes.
through their academic coursework.
Right.
You have a system in place where they can retake tests. Late work policies have changed. How did you implement all of that?
You know, that's a tough one because we have teachers that feel very strongly that in the real world, if they don't get things done on time, they lose jobs. And my argument has always been, number one, if we don't get them to the starting line and they don't have all the tools they need, then we've shortchanged them, we've underserved them. And the other piece is, and my superintendent in one of my previous districts made it very clear that in the graded course of study, when it says that when they learn it is more important than if they learn it, then we'll make sure that the timeline is the most important piece, but it's not. The fact is they need to learn their material, they need to have a solid base. And when they get to, quote, commencement day, that's the starting line. And we're not the real world yet. We're still a school, they're still students. And so that is the toughest argument. Even going from one district where the success rate was very, very high, coming into a new district, it took me 3 staff meetings to win the staff over. And then it was only on an experimental basis. And so it takes time to win people over, especially with the idea of if we take away the incentive. In other words, if they come and get it done by Tuesday at 5 o'clock, they don't lose any points for being a day or two late. And I tell them, when we get to the point where every teacher does everything on time every day, then we can do the same thing with kids. But the truth of the matter is that's not always the case. And will always have some that, for whatever reason, things don't always play just the way you hope. So it is a challenge. It takes a lot of work. And again, my emphasis is relationship before task. And I still think that when you create great relationship, you get great results. And if you have a plan, that's great. More important than the plan, the product, or the process is the teacher. And when you have great teachers that have that relationship with kids, I still believe that that's the greatest tool for success in schools.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Baker before we move on?
Again, thank you for the opportunity to share those things. I'll share them forever and hope that somebody can pick up a couple things along the way. And I'll get those couple pieces together and get them sent to you later today, Lisa.
Great, thank you. You're welcome to stay, or you can
Good.
sign off, whatever you want to do. But
Well,
thank you so
actually,
much.
I'm going to hang around for a little bit, but then I'm also involved with the testing here as well. So
All right.
in here in a little bit.
So I thought it was pretty neat that Mr. Baker shared, he considers people who go above and beyond, that they have the gold hearts, and I've given him 5 gold stars here, because I just think that the work that he does is fabulous, and I want to spread that message as well. Relationships come first, and when you have great relationships, you get great success. So thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
And if you like some of his philosophies, I just have to share this as well, because like Mr. Baker, I believe in changing some of our teacher practices so that we have better student engagement and students feel like they have a chance of success. And some of our current practices by some teachers that we've traditionally had, that everyone was doing these practices, maybe they don't allow for students to find the success that they could find, because it's like Mr. Baker said, it's not when they learn it, right? That's most important, is when they learn it, not if they learn it. We want them to learn it. And so we want to make sure we're giving them that time to learn it. So I just like to give a plug for this book, Power of ICU, which talks a lot about the things that Mr. Baker has talked about, keeping that list, expecting that every student completes every assignment, giving extra help, extra time, and just acknowledging that pretty much every kid has a story. Sometimes we don't need to know that story just to assume the kid has a story and cut the kid a break. So I did reach out to Danny Hill. He's the author of this book, or one of the authors. And he normally presents at the Summer High Schools That Work conference, but he is not this year. But he wanted me to let you know that Stewart's Creek High School will be presenting a couple of sessions about their impact in using the power of ICU philosophy. And so if you are attending High Schools That Work this summer, I strongly encourage you to hunt them up and check out what they have to say. I know I'm actually running a book study in Region 7 with this book, and one of the career centers, Knox County, is participating, and it's been going very well. A lot of insight to that. In fact, if you'll humor me, if you can, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And everyone turn on their cameras for just a second. I know I'm asking a lot, asking you to turn on your cameras. So one of the components that Mr. Baker talked about was allowing for retest. That's a big component of Power of ICU. And so I'm going to ask you, if you took your driver's license test and you passed it that very first time, shut your camera off. Couple people, but the rest of us, we're still here. We're still hanging out. I'm still hanging out, right? I had to take it again, and I was allowed to. And you know what? I passed it that second time. So if you passed it the second time, shut your camera off. And some of us had to take it a third time, and we were allowed to do that. And eventually, Becky, did you pass it on the third time?
Yes.
Yes, right? It's just about making sure that we're providing those opportunities for kids to be able to show us what they know. And so that's a great activity to do with your staff. I've done that actually using 3 different ways to do that. And so I'll do the driver's license example. Then I do the teacher test, like how many of you passed that teacher test the first time? Because usually in every staff, there's someone who had to take their teaching exam more than once. But then I also ask the ACT question, because most of us take that ACT test at least twice. And I did have one teacher who he did not want to give retest, just was pretty adamant he was not going to do it. But when I had the conversation with him about the ACT test, he had to take that test 4 times because his mom kept wanting him to get a better score. So, you know, and he did, maybe not on the 4th time, but he did increase his score each time. That's why we allow kids that extra opportunity to take that test again. And our test, right, they are just as important as any other test that these kids will take. I also wanted to take a minute and update you because I know that there was a lot of discussion last time that we met for our coffee hour, and we talked about how are we going to track all of this data? How do we track the work-based learning hours? How do we track their progress toward earning their graduation seals? I don't have any answers, but I did find 2 companies that I've heard are creating resources for you to do that. The Transio, right, is supposed to be a pretty good system. I don't have any experience with it, but I'll take you to their website real quick. And so they've got a lot here to be able to work with you. And I've heard this is like $7 to $8 per student. So that is one option you may want to explore. Major Clarity. I don't know anything about this one at all, but someone mentioned it in a meeting I was at recently. And so I wanted to pass that on to you as well, that this may be another option for keeping track of all of that data and progress. Do any of you have experience with either of these 2 companies? If you want to unmute and share or put it in the chat.
We don't have a ton of experience here at Penna with Transio. We have our 3rd meeting with them, virtual meeting with them this afternoon today. It's a lot. It's almost overwhelming, but we keep using the reference. It's like a playing card for a student. So or you know, like the old baseball card for a student. It has everything on there. I know that our EMIS person has kind of taken the lead on that, and the big thing is, does this work for Ohio, specifically a career center? And it does, but it doesn't too, right? We always find that 85% of it does, and then the rest we're ended up building on our own. So we're going to dig in a little bit more on some of those specifics. But there really isn't. I know Mentor is using it, and then they gave a couple other names of the non-traditional, the districts that kind of have their career CT built in. So not the career centers like we are. So we're going to reach out to some of them as well. But yeah, we're really trying to push forward and figure out a system to track all this, because it is kind of overwhelming, and we don't want to continue to have 5 different places to go find data. We want to have it all kind of a one-stop shop. So wish I had more specific info on Transio, but at this point I don't have anything specific to share.
Well, Mike, maybe Penta can give us an update next month when we have our coffee hour again. I definitely like to hear where people are progressing and what they're finding. So that would be great. You know, you say that the baseball card idea. I have a current sophomore, right? So I've got one of these kiddos who's going to graduate that way, right? She's that class of 2023. And last year, when I started talking to her about all of this, she's like, why can't I just open up my computer and have an app that just shows me where I'm at with getting to that place? She's right. Like that's what these kids need. And
Transio
their
has
parents.
that. The student view on Transio has probably too much. Kind of like Power School has too much sometimes. It has too much, but it has everything. It has your attendance. It has your credits. It has all your graduation plans, web exam scores, industry credit. I mean, you name it. It has everything in there. But getting it to work sometimes is another story. So that's what we're working on now.
Okay. Well, thank you for the information. How about Major Clarity? Has anybody had any experience with Major Clarity?
Lisa, this is Tracy from the Career Center. Being new, I have not had time to delve into those, and we have not used those. We've had a spreadsheet that our data person put together and is tracked, and it creates a front and back page that tells them their credits, which pathway, the classes they've taken, their points for the exam. And I don't know if they're looking to change what we have to make it morph and fit the new stuff, or if they're going to be looking for a different program.
Okay. And I know Rebecca Bin at Oregon Clay, she's created kind of a data tracker and just trying to get this all figured out. So kind of like Mike said, we're all just trying to piece it together. It'd be nice if we could find one system that would do that for all of it. All right, well, we'll keep looking. And when you find an answer, please share it with the rest of us. So any other questions? I always like to give you guys time. If there's any other hot topic that's been on your mind and you're trying to find a solution for, or want to know what other people are doing, now's the time to unmute or put in the chat any questions you have for the group.
I have a question. So the learning, well, we're calling it learning recovery funds, but the CARES 2 Act funds that are coming our way. Career Tech, so we have the opportunity to either extend our school year or do some type of virtual, or not virtual, but after school hours. And I don't think the after school hours is going to work. I think it's going to have to be something that extends their school year. I didn't know if any other district had a plan for Career Tech. What does that look like? Is it offered to every program, only the ones that are offering industry credentials or need extra hours? How do you mandate kids to come? Because if you don't mandate kids to come, then all the kids are going to be at different places starting their senior year. So I didn't know if any other Penta or someone else, TPS, had any ideas on how or what that's going to look like.
Anyone have any thoughts on how you might handle that? Have you been tossing around any ideas yet?
I'll just share that at Penna, we haven't even discussed the option of going into the summer.
Yes, at TPS, we have not discussed this at all yet at our level. So it may be happening somewhere else, but not at our level.
Thank you.
So I do know another option, Becky, if you're not wanting to extend this year, you could start a little earlier next year is something else they've talked about, being options. Yeah, I don't know how that will play out. And like you said, do you mandate it? Do you just offer it? Lots of questions with all that.
Well, and we're trying to, so we're going to offer obviously some help, some interventions for students who need to retake the OSTs, just like we would any normal year. But we're also those students that need credit recovery, instead of having to take it in the fall, we're going to offer like a 3-week, 4-week session, similar to the old summer school, right? And I'm like, that's great. But if you offer that like from an 8 to 10 and for English and a 10 to 12 for math, and then you have to have your science and social studies, you can't leave those folks out. So when would Career Tech even be offered? So we have to go at the tail end of the day. That's a long day for a student that might need all of that. And then who wants to come in the middle of the afternoon if it's just for Career Tech? So I don't know. I just was interested to see if anybody else had plans. We just started talking about it last week, but I just get this feeling like they want to finalize things soon, and I have no idea.
So what I can do to try to gather more, I mean, there are 5 of the CTPT consultants in the state. I can reach out to them to see if they've heard of anything that the CTs are doing. And if I get an answer, I'll certainly share that out with this group. Before the next coffee talk, I'll make sure I get it out in an email. All right, so the time where I share some new cool things that I found. Hopefully all of you have already seen this. but the web exam has agreed to allow for one retest per test in the senior year. So it has to be that graduating senior. They have to be in their final school year. And this is the part I really want people to pay attention to, is that 30 days, right? So 30 days after the original assessment. So we're already at the end of February. If your teachers are giving that test again, or for the first time, they'll be giving that test probably in April, is typically when I know most people would give it, would be late April, early May. That's not going to give you that 30-day window to test again, because you have to have at least 30 days passed before you can test for that second time on that test. So just make sure that your instructors are aware that yes, they can retest senior year, but it has to be 30 days after the original assessment. This is a live link at the top here. So if you want to go to this on ODE's webpage, that is a live link for you. Any questions or comments about that retesting? Okay, so I also wanted to share this with you because I do think there's good news to look at here. So this is a report from the Fordham Institute. I believe it came out earlier in the fall, and more Ohio students are earning those industry recognized credentials. Now, it may only be 7 to 8% of our students that are earning them. However, when we first started tracking this data in 2016, we were at 3.8%, right? 1.9%. So I just think that it's really, really important to notice that every year you see this increase and that students are passing them. More students are passing them. However, just pay attention, because see how this is broken out on the left-hand side by our special populations. You know, our students with disabilities are doing pretty well compared to all students. Like that for me is some really good news. But then there's some concerning when you look at our Black students. Like, I'm not sure that that's good news there. And I wonder what we can do to pay more attention to that data and to see that data change. So again, there's a live link for you here. I will share that this live link, I guess I'll just take you right to it, frustrates me a little bit because, and a whole bunch of live links in here, which is cool. So they give you this data, and then they give you this data. So this breaks it down by county and the school district, but I'm looking at this and probably the same as you. This percentage from this school is probably because of all of you, right? So if we're looking at, say, Gibsonburg, Exempted Village, and Sandusky, that 29.9%, the majority of that is probably coming from their students who are at the Career Center. So I am going to go through and put the Career Centers that are attached, just so that we can look at it that way. I haven't done that yet, but I was a little disappointed because it's really the work that you guys do that's creating this. Not all. There are some schools earning their own industry credentials, but the majority of credentials being earned in the state of Ohio are happening at Career Centers or within career tech education.
I would be interested in knowing by region. There tends to be not the request for industry credentials from business and industry in Northwest Ohio versus Southern Ohio or Southwest Ohio. So I'd be interested to know what the results were by region too.
So you're wondering two things maybe. Does the data look different in student attainment by region? And then I think the other question underlying that is, of the industry, are they asking for it of their applicants? Yeah, that's a good question. You know, and part of that may be our job to explain to them what that industry credential means that the kid has earned, and that to get them to see when they've got two applicants and one of them has the industry credential, It just might be that that industry credential holder is a better choice, right? It comes with some more knowledge and skills. So that is there for you. And then I always like to have something a little fun to share. Got to find my presentation. There we go. So this is from the Generation T, which is another organization that's out there trying to spread the career tech message. And it's 3 reasons teens don't consider careers in the skilled trades. They haven't been shown the money. We've talked about that. In previous sessions, we've talked about Jacob and how as an electrical lineman, he's earning almost $100,000 a year. And that when I share that with other teachers, they are shocked that a 22-year-old is earning that kind of income. So show them the money. Make sure we're getting that information out to our adult influencers as well as our students. The other thing that they found in this research is that surrounding culture doesn't support the skilled trades. And so my question to you is, what is the mindset of your non-career tech educators? And how do you know their mindset? What digging have you done to learn about the support that's out there for career tech education prior to them coming to you? And then the traditional education machine pushes college. I think that that's still happening more than we would like it to. And so I wonder, how can career tech become embedded into career advising in K-12? And as I wrote that, I was like, kindergarten. How do we get that message to kindergartners? Well, if you go to their website and you click on buzz, like what's the buzz? They have this. And I just thought this was a fun way that you could think about it. So really, some of our tradespeople are being highlighted in some of the classic Disney movies. So you could think of Geppetto as a wood carver. He's got some carpentry skills. Or Zeus from Hercules. There's our electrician. Moana, right? We're talking about some plumbing, some water issues if you're maybe environmental studies. The Emperor's New Clothes, we're talking design. So we could be talking graphic design. You could talk about maybe in your painting and flooring. So all kinds of things that could connect to Emperor's New Groove. Frozen, HVAC, right? It's all about that heating issue. Rapunzel from Tangled could be considered painting. And Wall-E could be appliance technician, right? Or maybe some kind of robotics and engineering. So there's some fun ways that you could make those connections even to the younger kids, just to plant those career tech seeds. And again, that's a live link for you. So I will be sure to send this PowerPoint link out to you. Those are just some fun things that I found that I wanted to share with you. Any new stuff from any of you, anything you've stumbled across that the rest of us might like to see? All right, then we come to the conclusion. And our next coffee hour will be March 19th. I will try to track down some of that CARES information before then and get that out to you. If you could take a minute before you log off, if you could, let me get the link in the chat. I'll get you the link to my feedback form, because I would really like to know if you have ideas for future topics and future sessions. So let me get this for you. Yes, go ahead.
March 19th is the ACTA meeting in Columbus. So I don't know. Most of us might be there. I don't know if districts are letting their people go or not, because it's not a virtual meeting. It's a live in session meeting. So
So in feedback form, let me know if March 19th is going to be an issue for you. I may have to reschedule that date then. I do know they're only allowing like 130 people to attend, so I'm not going to attend this year, but I can change our coffee hour date, no problem, if the rest of you will be attending that. So please make sure you use that feedback form so that I am aware of that. And then before you take off, if you would also like a copy of this PowerPoint, I can drop it right in.